Welcome to another Rooster Talk, where we speak with ASX companies, giving us updates on what they've been doing. We're at the UWA Club here in Crawley at the University of Western Australia. I've got Andrew Radonjic here from Venture Minerals, and he's going to be giving us an update, a discussion on their latest announcement from their Thor project, which is in WA. Andrew, welcome back, and give us what's been happening.
Good to be back, Noel. Good to meet you again. Obviously, a little bit of a hiatus with the COVID situation,
Yes.
But work continues on. Look, we've had a pretty exciting announcement from our joint venture partners at Chalice. They've been doing work on the ground there at our Southwest project, which is the nickel copper PGE joint venture, and I suppose we could probably maybe recap what's happened there. It's Chalice selected our project, where would have come in and looked at it a matter of 2 or 3 months after the discovery at Julimar. We're talking about March last year, and then famously, everyone sort of scrambled around, like, shall we peg land around there, let's do the Nearology plays, and we've seen the outcome of that, 12 months later. Companies are listing and putting results out. There's Caspen, for example, and it's been a very active spot, but everyone's, pegged that land and done all that stuff, but Chalice, chose to come and look at our block of land, because, when we look at the mag, and we had a look at this, well, shall we peg some land and do the same like everyone else does? And we decided, well, hang on, we've got, the mag looks like a replica, or as Chalice called a Julimar lookalike. And in fact, what we did is we pegged more land around our Southwest project, around Thor, because we knew there's some non-magnetic ultramafics, and there's actually old talc mines down there. So we pegged that and added to our land package, and then all of a sudden we get a knock at the door, and it's the Chalice guys that sort of said, we wouldn't mind having a look at your data, and in a few months, a couple of months later, we've done a deal. So this is back in July last year, almost 12 months to the day, and it was great to have a group that's coming on to a new discovery, something brand new that no one knew about, and to have someone with all that IP and knowledge from what they've done at Julimar and applying that to our Thor target, it was a pretty exciting opportunity. I suppose something we couldn't refuse. So we were pretty excited, did the deal. Wish I bought some Chalice shares or $1 back then after the announcement, and now
How high could it have gone? Right?
Well, exactly, and so $9.34 apparently. And then so I didn't buy any shares after the announcement, but they've gone up, I suppose, 9-fold, and we hit 16 cents, so we went up 8-fold. But obviously, Ventures, we've got about to do our first shipment of iron ore. We've got our record tin prices with Mount Lindsay, so we're not just simply that story. But the Chalice, we've been waiting for them to get on activity, and imagine this sort of where our project, our joint ventures were competing for work, and the attention of Chalice, as it was up to a $3 billion company, Thor's fighting for the exploration attention against Julimar, and we got that. And they got underground, as we announced back in late April, and started doing the EM. In fact, the EM crew that finished up, the ground EM crew finished up at Julimar, and then came down to Thor. Unfortunately, they were a bit delayed, and we've run into wet weather problems. So we've only completed a third of the program, and one would have to say probably the lowest priority third. And then you just can't run electrical cables when it's raining down there, so they've had to stop it. But we've been able to release to the market the results of those initial results, which are pretty exciting.
I mean, when we last spoke about this, and it was a lot sunnier than now. I brought up the topic, the fact that you guys did do a lot of work on the project prior to Chalice coming on to there, and we made this point that it's very likely this would happen, right? With the announcement that yes, they've got this target, it must give you guys a lot of heart that this is more than just a neurology play, right? There's actually facts behind the EM anomalies, right? You want to call that?
Well, that's right. We got 13 airborne EM anomalies. So they're going to do the ground EM, which is logically the next step. You know, you do the ground EM so you can pinpoint, because airborne EM is going to give you a target, but the location of it is, you know, you kind of like seeing the top of the plate, whereas a ground EM will kind of give you, you know, instead of being a target, maybe this will give you a more precise target. So you could be drilling, could have drilled a hole, we drilled holes 4 and 5, and you know, you could be like meters away from, and it's a great example is that, you know, that they've been doing the EM, we're just hitting the top of that zone where we've got those 13 EM targets, and lo and behold, we've got a ground EM response, which is 10 metres from hole 4. Now hole 4, which we announced back in late 2018, we drilled that late 2018, results come out, I think, early 2019. And hole 4 has got 86 metres of disseminated sulphide. We've got elevated levels, it's highly anomalous PGEs. And here's this plate 10 metres away. And that's a perfect example of what could happen on our more high priority areas. And you know, shareholders ask me, well, why doesn't Chalice start drilling that hole now? Well, it's Chalice are running a joint venture, not us. We potentially would. But you know, logically, when you do this systematic approach, you do the whole lot and you work out what is the higher priority and you drill those first. And maybe this is the 5th best target. Who knows what it could be? But you know, it's the early days. It's pretty exciting. And you know, you go and look at, you know, at hole 5. At hole 5, we've got this massive sulphide over 2.4 metres. We've got, you know, big chunks of chalcopyrite, 0.5% copper there. We've got 0.05 nickel, which is not unusual at Julimar. We've got, and then we've got start getting elevated levels of silver, gold, and palladium. So, and 0.04% cobalt. So, you know, so all the indications are pretty strong. So again, it might be a very similar scenario where, you know, they get a plate there, and again, you know, they won't reconvene until spring. But you know, say September, October, and by the end of November, they've got to get completed. As part of our extension we've allowed them to spend $300,000 up till then, and then we'll get some results out hopefully just before Christmas. We might have stronger targets that they can drill. So it's early stages, but you know, pretty exciting, I think.
In your announcement under Figure 1, where they've talked about, you know, it's greater than 1,000 Siemens. Can you just give us a quick sort of understanding of what that means? And I mean, you just talked about how that the hole 4 had the sulfides, and now they've effectively identified a plate there. How does that pan out? I mean, to the layman, right? It's to most of us, it's a bunch of pretty pictures with dots on it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah, exactly. Look, the plates. You know, 1,000 Siemens, you know, what does that mean? And I suppose, you know, we went back and had a look at the, I think it was a quarterly report, the December 2019 quarterly report. This is before the discovery. This is Chalice's report, sorry, by the way. And you see these conductance values, you know, one had 10,000 Siemens, and, you know, that's going to be a massive sulfide. And then you've got the other ones that got 300. And obviously everyone tends to drill the higher ones because they're supposed to be more massive sulfide. More massive sulfide mean more grade.
Yep.
And
theoretically,
theoretically,
yeah.
But it's got to be the right sort of sulfides. Yeah. So nickel, iron, and copper will give you those responses. But you know, Julimar is about the PGEs, not necessarily about the nickel. The nickel values you're getting aren't particularly high, or the copper values aren't particularly high. But it's the PGEs, the precious metals, if you like, that, you know, when we're talking about, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 US per ounce, does add the value. And conductor F, you know, I point to everyone talks about conductor C. Conductor F, I think is sub 1,000. I don't know if it's 300 or 800, and they got over 2 grams per tonne platinum, palladium in there. So they're getting great results in areas where those values are lower. So even when we got 1,000 and less than 1,000, it's kind of almost almost a little bit irrelevant. It's not necessarily. In fact, you've got an anomaly there. You've got some sulfides. Is the key component. Obviously, the right rocks, and then you may get the grade. So I'll make the statement that similar strength conductors yielded wide and significant palladium. You go back. I actually had to go back and follow through the announcements, and if people do that, eventually they talk about conductor F. And because they started doing, squid EM, try to get deeper results, because the EM we're doing at the moment is great down to about 350 metres around there, but they're getting deeper results, and they've obviously gone beyond, they're drilling it out. It's, basically, drill out at the moment to get a resource as quickly as possible. So they've gone beyond connecting what these conductors' strength are relationship versus. But if you go through like we did, dig through the announcements, and you go, well, hang on, you don't need to get a 10,000 Siemens results, though that is a good result, and clearly you would hold 5 way down, in the main priority zone. You'll see that you'll start getting those type of responses, and so it'll be interesting to see how they prioritise the targets when to get it, and which holes they will drill first. And there's no doubt they will drill. They that's so look forward. Shareholders can look forward to not only the EM results coming out around either the end of this year or early next year, but looking forward to them having to drill. To spend the next $900,000 has to be spent by this time next year. So they've got to sort of get their running shoes on and get stuck into it. So that's as you said before, this project was not grassroots. We spent a couple of $1 million getting it to this point before Chalice came in. So there's a great base of data, of geological data that they can just add to and get moving and get drilling quite quickly. So it's a great opportunity for venture for another replica Julimar discovery, Julimar number 2, if you like.
Again, just going through your announcement, like in Figure 3, I remember the last time we spoke, you were saying that a lot of the focus, if not all your focus, has been on the southern half of that target, that sort of mag target you want to call, or mag anomaly, that 20 kilometre strike. I've noticed that they've also have a target area to the very north of that. So is that something surprising to you guys, or do you think it was just the fact that you guys never got there?
It's not necessarily surprising because we flew the airborne EM, and there's power lines there. So when we look at the anomaly, it sort of does this sort of jog. Goes, this is the southern part, which is where we've got a 13 EM, and then it sort of does a jog and then does that again. Same trend. Well, if you know the Hellier story, it's under the power line. Yeah. And so we flew it to see what we could get, and I think we got an airborne anomaly there, but we couldn't sort of rely upon it. And the ground EM is bang, nailed it. Yeah. So I think how we approach from an EM exploration perspective, that northern half is going to be a little bit more challenging. But I think they just wanted to do some work to see what it realised and whether it did work. And bang, you've got a conductor, pretty interesting conductor. But yeah, the how we work around the power lines, there's a telephone transmitter there as well. So these obviously an airborne is a bit of an issue. Where to putting the lines on the ground, the wires on the ground, is probably still going to be impacted. But to what level? Whether we can filter that out and get a signal and some idea, still to be seen. But obviously, I think the initial focus is going to be that southern part in terms of drilling and all that, and develop the target. But still very much an untapped potential there to the north. So again, time will tell.
I remember the very first time we had a conversation and we were going through all your projects. I walked away thinking that there's probably about 5 companies there.
Yes, there's a fair bit going on.
Look, I always look at things, locally is really easy to see it, but, when you look at regionally, I always feel like it's sort of the comfort blanket where you say, well, regionally, this thing's already should be looking at it. So when you look at, I think it's figure 5 in your announcement where you have that regional map. We have Julimar to the north there, and that metamorphic belt. I think we sort of touched it before. It's again like most of our industries that 20, 30 years ago, people didn't think much of it. And then when something like Julimar happens, everyone suddenly becomes an expert. And hey, look, hey, by the way, there's this belt or this thing or this trend. And then company 3, 4 and 5 follows up and suddenly, which is why I'm referring to, it's like Kulin's in that sort of that trend, right?
Yeah, that's right. We haven't, Kulin we pegged, and you have to go, if you go back to the quarterly report, you'll see, and even in the presentations I've done, we've plotted where Kulin is. And it's certainly that Gimberting metamorphic belt is sort of trending out that way. But what tends to happen is that, when there's a discovery, there's all of a sudden this leap of geological I suppose desire, even the governments will go there, we'll do some mapping here, and all of a sudden interpretation of those belts is old because there's been no interest, and the Geological Survey may want to try and say, well, okay, if we do some mapping exercise or more geophysical surveys, and the government puts some money in it, all of a sudden it'd be great for the economy if there's another Julimar discovered or 3 of them or 4 of them. Obviously that's important for the state. So some of that geological interpretation tends to get a bit old, and so I always find that you get great geological interpretation around Kalgoorlie, and then you get nothing in the Murchison because until there's a discovery or something happens and then all of a sudden everyone goes in and the geological data and the ideas and all of a sudden gets this boost when there's a new discovery, and all of a sudden we do this and I was hang on, no, there's another target here. And for example, Anglo America just pegged all around us months ago. We had a look at Kulin and we said to ourselves, should we peg any more land? Because we're not that far away really. When you look at it, we're kind of in that same terrain, and that metamorphic belt sort of extending. And it's not hard to imagine that that's an opportunity, even though it's 200 kilometres away. And let's not forget that our Thor project is probably 300 kilometres away. So it's more about the right rocks and the right environment. And we pegged that back a few years ago on being a nickel copper PGE layered intrusion, mafic, ultramafic intrusion complex. That's kind of what the reason we pegged it back then. But we were distracted by the fact that in the centre of that sort of intrusion is BHP gold anomaly, so we drill those gold holes. The results are out. We've been waiting for a while there, but the labs have been chockers, and in Perth because of the exploration boom and the lack of people or transient population, coming in and doing the sample prep, the basic stuff, and they're just piles sitting in the laboratories waiting to be done. But that the focus of that was the gold. But there's definitely, we still have another string to our bow there on the nickel copper PGE. So we'll definitely get back onto that. And Kulin is certainly part of that Julimar story, lookalike story, as well. So that's why we sort of we sort of refer it as in, look, this Kulin project is in that area, and people have been pegging around us trying to replicate and that sort of targeting and people start investigating. Obviously. News flow to come out from those companies will take time. Tenement needs to be granted, but we're starting to see other companies starting to generate news flow around Julimar itself. But the next areas will take time because they were applied for later, and who knows where the best area is and where the next one's going to come from. But Kulin's is certainly part of our strategy.
I think the reason why all these belts are coming out is because there's a discovery, Geo's got a bit more money, they buy a few more bottles of red wine, have a drink, and then suddenly, hey, look, by the way, that looks like a trend.
Well, it's funny how people go in with this sort of blinkered approach, and we can go and talk about our Southwest project. We pegged it for lithium, looking for pegmatites because we found a tin anomaly, which is tins in associated pegmatites, lithium, and we found a pegmatite at Odin on the eastern part of our tenure. So yes, we found a pegmatite. wasn't lithium bearing, but we ended up finding some nickel and copper sulfides, and that's the whole that way out to the east of Thor, and like I said, it's at Odin, and we went from pegmatites to VMS.
Oh yes.
Yes, because there's a VMS that Tech found on the western edge of our boundary, west of Thor, and then there was this huge EM plate, which was the very first VTEM survey done in Australia. Because remember, Tech were Canadians, so they brought their technology. First VTEM survey flown in Australia was here at Thor. There's this huge anomaly, and done back in 2005, and it was a 15-metre resolution. And we got funding from the government, state government, co-funded the first hole. We thought, let's put a hole into this EM. And we got 17 metres of sulfides. We announced that in, I think it was just around Diggers in 2018, in August, around August. And we got all this sulfide. We thought it might have been graphite, it could have been just a biff, but well, that's quite interesting. And then that's when we flew the 50 centimetre resolution airborne EM survey a few months later. So the whole project, again, has graduated from, and again, all of a sudden, you're not looking for a Julimar, you're looking for a VMS, and then all of a sudden, everyone has to dust off and look at numbers in their, you get all these assays, either in your soils or whatever, and then all of a sudden you go, well, hang on, I've got some anomalous PGE sitting here, and it's matching up with some higher chrome and some elevated nickel, and all of a sudden the geologist starts reinterpreting stuff, going, well, hang on, maybe I missed something here. And maybe the red wine does actually focus.
Oh, it does.
but all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, hang on, Julimar didn't exist pretty much, 2 years ago. Now it's the focus of everyone's attention, and if we go back and look, I think there's an old geological survey report talking about PGE prospects. Julimar's listed there.
Yeah,
it's not like it's brand new.
Yeah.
And there's this data set about, done by CRC LME back in early 2000s about laterite sampling in the southwest corner of Western Australia. Well, some of the highest chrome values in that data set, and I think that gets up to Perth, doesn't quite go, so it goes along that Great Eastern Highway, comes down, goes across to Southern Cross, and then back across to, covers its southwest corner. Some of the highest chrome values, which obviously is a good indicator of the mafic, ultramafic rocks, the rocks you need for a Julimar setting, are Kulin and Thor. We pegged them. So that's, you look at those data sets, and very broad data set, but it's just a way of sort of mapping some, areas, I suppose, that would be of interest in terms of nickel exploration or whatever. They try the whole bunch of different ratios to say this could be good for gold, this could be good for VMSs, this could be good for nickel sulfide type zone. So and we use that data set. When we pegged Kulin 3 or 4 years ago now.
I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to draw the attention to the regional map, because the way all these deposits happen is from what I call a cooking pot, and if you've got lots of things cooking and brewing around you, then likelihood you've got a system there that's very productive, very fertile in that sense, right? So I mean, when you look at Kulin, you look to your western side, you've got Boddington, not that far away, and it's the system that allowed such a large deposit to be formed. Surely that system's not like just condensed to that couple of kilometres that it sits in, right?
Absolutely.
The system's a lot bigger. So that's why when you look at the trend, people, like you said, there's lots and lots of examples where you're looking for commodity A and you end up with commodity D, but I think the underlying factor is, once you understand it's a cooking system, and the system has to be big, right? And even let's say take the goldfields. I mean, 1,600 kilometres of mineralisation. What we've found today already, there must be more to be found, and we are seeing that more being found already, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that the southwest of the corner of the Yilgarn, and it's the same rocks as the Kalgoorlie, the Menzies. That belt goes from Laverton, Leonora, Menzies, through to Norseman. Kalgoorlie. The amount of gold and nickel in that area is world class. And, you know, after Southern Cross, as you go west, everyone goes, it's too hard, it's been metamorphosed, you know, and then, you know, obviously Julimar's changed that. But, you know, the area's mineralised. It's got one of the biggest lithium mines in the world, got one of the biggest gold mines in Australia. It's got Iluka, mineral sands, it's mineral sands, but clearly there's mineralisation, there's something happening down there, and yet people have kind of gone, geologists have got, oh, it's too hard, let's go for the low-hanging fruit. Yeah. And they only come through and start exploring these areas either because there's a discovery or there's a boom. Yeah. You know, and you look at the exploration that's happened in this area before, you go, oh, the Anaconda came looking for nickel sulfides in our area around where Thor is when they were active, and then they disappeared. And before that it was Western Mining. They came down and had a bit of a look, and then they disappeared. You know, and so companies come and maybe we're in that phase again now. All of a sudden there's an exploration boom, and then everyone's down there looking for lithium, or obviously that's what we went looking for the first time. But you know, so it's so don't discount. And the Pilbara is now a very good example. Everyone's going, Pilbara's iron ore, and all of a sudden it's gold, and then people go through the gold phase, and then people will make a nickel discovery in the Kimberleys, and you know, it'll go through phase, and all of a sudden it drops off. The geology does not change. It's just the market, and everyone's chasing that at a particular time, and then the boom will come off, but the geology will be the same. So
I think it's the influx of money, you know, like Patterson's another area. You've got all these major commodities, different mines, but there seem to be, you can point dots on the Patterson because no one's been there, and it's too hard, it's too expensive. Now there's a bit of money flowing, you can see, you know, actions happening. So it's, I think, like, I see this belt, it's another one, you know, it's like so many of our stories that we talk about where suddenly there's a, as you said, discovery, and then someone relooks at it, goes, oh, I remember reading this, I remember seeing this, you know, and then and having the funds, that's the key, right? Having the funds to go chase it.
Absolutely, and certainly this market provides that opportunity, and you know, I think we'll everybody be looking for the next Julimar. While that funding's there, like the Fraser Range, everyone, you know, how much money got spent in the Fraser Range after discovery, and maybe Legend have got the next one, and that's taken that time. But you know, sometimes the best place to look is not necessarily next door. Sometimes it's in a much broader sense, and who knows what it will yield. But you know, like it's a great opportunity for you know, for venture with a partner, and you know, we've got, you know, land positions there for, you know, maybe a little bit ahead of our time, you know, looking for those things. We pegged that land on the back of what G88 was doing at Quicksilver around that Pingaring area, which is probably 100 k's further east of Kulin, and we sort of had our eye on the area, and that sort of got us ignited in that area. But it's funny how these things happen, isn't it?
Yep. Oh, look, you know, I like you. I've always liked your Thor. I remember Thor in Kulin, really sort of exploration, but it's we've just discussed, it's all new frontiers opening up, and new ideas, new concepts. So going forward for the Thor, I assume we're just waiting for the drilling to happen with Chalice.
Yeah, very much. Obviously, it would have been great to get all the EM done, and we'd be looking at drilling sooner. But I suppose the interesting part about it is that you know, they'll condense their drilling. They'll be sort of pretty much forced to do that drilling in the first half of next year because of the agreement, and I think it's you know, a great opportunity for us to see those results. You know, in the meantime, obviously wait for those EM results to come out in either just before Christmas or maybe early next year, and then the drilling to follow shortly afterwards. So no, we look forward to those results, and obviously releasing that and informing the market, and hopefully it'll be, you know, if with good results we can get Chalice talking about it, it'll be even an extra boost for the company.
All right, fantastic, Andrew. Again, thanks for sharing the story, and we'll hope to follow the journey, and I'm sure, you know, your other projects will create some news flow soon anyway.
Absolutely. I know there's plenty going on with Venture, so thanks again, and it's been a pleasure.
All right, thanks.